Jerusalem. It's the city Jesus came to for his last week before his death on the cross. But why Jerusalem? Let's start by talking about the history of this very ancient city. Jerusalem was founded by an ancient group of people called the Jebusites, who referred to the city as Salem. That's like all we know before we get to King David. King David was, of course, a king in Israel, God's chosen people, who conquered the city in 2 Samuel 5, verse 7. David conquered the fortress of Zion, which is the city of David. Now, this is the first time Jerusalem was ever labeled as Zion, or the city of David, but we'll get back to that. King David's son and predecessor, King Solomon, built the temple, which was the epicenter of the faith for believers in Yahweh God. To say that the temple was an important building was kind of an understatement. The temple represented God's choice to dwell among his people, just like the tabernacle did. See Exodus 26 for more information about the tabernacle. The tabernacle was a temporary tent representing God's presence that Israel would pitch as they would move around. But the temple was a permanent structure that represented God's presence in Jerusalem. Do you see why the Israelites might call Jerusalem the Holy City? If you want to read more about the construction of the temple, read 1 Kings chapter 6. So Jerusalem was ruled by the king of Israel until Israel and Judah broke into two different nations. After the split, the rulers of the country of Judah, David's family tree, held control of Jerusalem. Israel, on the other hand, got bad fast. Judah did better, but not by much. Kings like Hezekiah and Josiah showed great strength in the face of adversity. But kings like Ahaz really proved that Judah wasn't really going to stay on the right path for long. He sacrificed children. That's like a huge no-no if you're going to follow God. Like, really. Eventually, the city of Jerusalem, the capital of the Judean Empire, would fall to Babylon. Read more about that in 2 Kings chapter 25 or 2 Chronicles 36. After almost a full generation of being in exile, the Jewish people were allowed to go back home at the decree of King Cyrus. I know I just said that Babylon conquered Jerusalem and now it's Persia letting them go free. It's a complicated wrestling match, okay? But now let's talk a little bit more about the theology of Jerusalem. In the book of Psalms, which was the song book for the ancient people of Yahweh, Jerusalem crops up time after time as an important symbol when describing God's action in the world, and more importantly, how God relates to humans in the world. Psalm 125 gives us this classic line, "As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people." Oh yeah, did I mention Jerusalem is sitting on a mountain? Jerusalem, like most ancient cities, was on a hill, making it perfect to defend against intruders. In fact, Psalm 30 even makes reference to the holy mountain. You want to guess what that is? Yep, it's Jerusalem. The city of Jerusalem isn't just a place where a bunch of history happened. It's a city that is intertwined with how the Bible explains God's character. It is the place where God dwelled and spent time with humanity in his temple. It represented so many things to ancient Israelites. It represented safety, security, especially in a time in the ancient world where there weren't home security systems or 911 call centers. But most importantly, it inspired hope. Walking around Jerusalem for God followers was a reminder of where they had been, where they are right now, and where they might be going in the future. And that's whether you're under the reign of King David, one of the greatest kings of Israel, or you're a remnant of people returning from exile at the decree of King Cyrus. This is the same Jerusalem, mind you, that heard some of the best sermons in the entire Bible from the preaching of the prophets like Isaiah or Jeremiah. This is the same Jerusalem that survived countless kings, both good and bad. And this is the same Jerusalem that Jesus rides into on the back of a donkey on Palm Sunday. This is the Jerusalem that Jesus will be crucified outside of on a dark day. This is Jerusalem, the holy city, the place where Jesus turns over tables in the temple. Yeah, that temple, the one we were just talking about. The place where Judas betrays Jesus for some silver coins. The place where Jesus taught, prophesied, and even healed people, like in the pool of Bethesda in John chapter 5. The place where Jesus died. the place where Jesus was buried, and probably most significantly, the place where Jesus rose from the dead. This is Jerusalem, a messy place redeemed by God again and again and again. And that is why Jerusalem is important.